Hello and welcome back to season 3 of the Extreme Cinema
Oh my
Podcast. I
lord.
know, right? We've made it.
Season 3.
Season 3 and we've got a good season lined up for you. With me as ever is my wonderful co-host Dom Loach. How have you been, Dom?
Hello. I've been good. How are you, Steady?
I've been good too. And we've got an interesting one for you today, don't we? We're fucking 2 pages of notes right here on this mental movie.
Yeah, I know. I usually come into these things with no notes. I'm quite good at just talking. I had to make notes. Like, this is... and everybody's heard of this
Everyone's
one.
heard.
Like, everybody will have heard of
Even
this
if
one.
they've not seen it, it is one of the most infamous films for its very infamous backstory, which we'll get into. I want to talk about seeing this film in the cinema the other day because it was one of those like crazy things that happened. Because
Oh,
Dom and I had our little season 3 production meeting, and we agreed on the films we were going to show. And Caligula, which is today's episode, was going to be episode 2. And we were like, oh yeah, there's a new cut coming out. I don't know, should we wait for the new cut? I don't know, not thinking the new cut is going to be some hugely different film, which it turns out it is. But yeah, so we did that. And then the next day, I went to the surprise screening at the BFI in London as part of their Scala season, which I saw like a bunch of films in that season, like Looking for Mr. Goodbar and Basket Case and stuff.
mm-hmm.
And I guessed it was going to be an exploitation film because it was part of the Scala season, because they're promoting that documentary that's out now on it. And
Yeah.
Jane Giles was giving the introduction, and she was like, it was... They wanted to see this at a bunch of film festivals, and it kept selling out. And I was thinking, okay, is this a new film? Is this going to be Red Room? I really, really want to see that. And he's like, oh, it's an old film. It played at the Scala. The Scala being a cinema in London in the, 80s that was apparently anarchy in there.
Yes.
A couple times. It's an old film. I was like, what old film that just got a restoration that would have played in the 80s in the Scala could this be? And I was wrecking my head, and then she leaves the stage, and the person from the cinema just goes, by the way, there's an intermission in the middle of this. And I was like, what exploitation film is long enough for an intermission?
To have an intermission,
And I was like,
yeah.
wait a minute. And then it starts, and the new cut starts with like a text scroll explaining the context of the film, and I was like, internally screaming. I was like, no fucking way. No fucking way.
The text that I got from you after it finished was so funny. Like,
Just like, you're not going to believe this, Dom. It was Caligula.
2 days, what, after we'd talked
One.
about it? Was it a day
The
or
literal
two?
day
That's
after we talked
insane.
about it. And it was...
That's so funny.
It was so fucking funny as well, because it was a surprise film. And then in the intermission, I heard the person next to me on his phone, and he was clearly like, I'm sorry, I didn't think this was going to be 3 hours, And then his friends came, and I was like, I'm sorry, I don't mean to, have listened in, but are you missing a party right now because you're stuck watching the 3-hour new cut of Caligula? And they were like, yeah, and we hate this film. They left at the intermission.
That's so funny.
But just I'm going to see a film, they're doing like a bunch of genre films, probably an hour and a half, 2 hours max, and then I'll head out and meet you, and they're stuck watching Caligula, and they hating every second of it.
They thought they were going to be watching some kind of crazy exploitation for an hour and a bit. It turned into the new cut of Caligula. Oh,
It was
wow.
one of those mental cinema screenings, and this on the big screen was actually something, and what a rarity to see this on the big screen. And I don't hate this film. I quite like the new cut. It's still a fucking mess. It's been said about Caligula for ages that there's this hidden masterpiece in it because it was edited by the producer to include pornography, and it was just it was ruined upon release basically. But it's got all these top actors: Malcolm McDowell, Helen Mirren, John Gielgud, Peter O'Toole, and the direction, there's clearly something in it, so people are like, oh, there's this masterpiece hidden in it. And I think the new cut is confirmation that there's no masterpiece in here. It's a complete fucking mess. But in the words of Malcolm McDowell, and I'm quoting a Letterboxd review here, but I presume he said this in an introduction at a film festival.
I saw this one. I know what you're going to say right now.
It's no master good. It's no masterpiece, but it's pretty good now. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's fucking mental, and it's such a mess. And you know what? 3 hours passed like that. Dom, what did you think?
It's better. It makes it a lot better.
Yeah.
I mean,
The old cut's bad, by the way, just flat out. We'll talk about that as well.
yeah. The old cut is bad. We'll get to the old cut because we're doing Caligula as a whole here. But it gets rid of all of the porn. So, still a horny ass movie. That movie you could never
insane.
You could never not make that movie horny, but it gets rid of all the explicit stuff. But the background of this movie is incredible, like Gore Vidal and Tito Brass stuff. It's
I know.
So cool.
I've just been reading about all that, and I'm just like, Jesus.
We'll get into it in a while, and the individuals as well, because I have so much to say on those people. It's crazy, but like,
I think we should. Yeah,
as a film, it's slightly better. Was my takeaway.
Yeah, I'd say slightly better too, because like I don't even know. I don't think the cut I saw had pornography in it, but I don't know if it's like the like, because they call this the ultimate cut, but I swear Arrow's cut was also called the ultimate cut.
Yeah, it was.
I think reading the different versions online, because I saw this uploaded to YouTube a while back, I think I may have seen like a French version of it that is kind of in between, because I don't think I saw any hardcore sex, but like the order of events was different and whatnot.
Oh, is this the original time you saw?
Yeah, the original time.
Ah, okay. I've definitely seen the one with all of the hardcore stuff in. Because it's me, so of course I have.
So I think we're going to get into the film first, and then we will probably spend most of the podcast talking about everything else around the film.
Just before we get into this, I didn't want to, when you were doing your big introduction, I didn't want to interject, but do you know how you were like, oh, there's a masterpiece hidden in here? Are you telling me that Caligula is Blair Witch 2 Book of Shadows? That's what you said to me.
Oh my god, what a comparison.
It's the Extreme Cinema podcast. We have to do it.
What a comparison. Kind of. Wow.
Nowhere else would you find a podcast that calls Caligula
Blair Witch 2.
Blair Witch 2 Book of Shadows.
There's gotta be like other versions of this, like maybe I saw The Northman last year, maybe when we get the director's cut of that's actually going to turn out to be like a masterpiece, even though The Northman was pretty damn good.
Yeah, that was actually a good film to start with, at least, though.
There is something that's on the tip of my tongue that is like Blade Runner.
Ah, yes,
Blade Runner. I think Blade Runner is the most famous example of this, that the theatrical cut's kind of mid and messy.
Oh, I have so many stories about Blade Runner where I've been talking to people about that film, and then they've seen a completely different version and not even realised. And they've been like, what are you talking about? Like,
I mean, I don't think people our age appreciate the final cut was 2007. So you don't have to be that much older than us to have possibly only encountered the theatrical.
Yeah, exactly. I was 12 when the final cut was released. So.
But, yeah. I think Caligula... I think to sum up this film very, very quickly, it's a mix of three genres. You've got your, like, historical epic, and I mean, like sincere, like Cleopatra, Ben-Hur historical epic. You've got that scale, you've got all the costumes and sets and the grandiose theatrical plot and acting and whatnot. You've got the exploitation elements, which are pretty self-evident even in the new version. Tons of sex and violence even in the new version, in a very sensational way. And then you've got this weird kind of surreal art house film that's very Italian. I haven't seen any other Tinto Brass, but it reminded me of like Pasolini, like all these sort of very extra, borderline surreal scenes. Also,
yeah, it is super Italian.
No wonder this film got completely messed to try and bring it to like a mainstream quote-unquote US audience and whatnot. And I think like 2 out of 3 of these could have worked together. All 3 of them, it's a total mess.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This film is such a mess, and the original version of it is an absolute mess. Like beyond any comparison. Like the editing is so obvious in where he's just stuck hardcore porn in there as well. There's obviously the original director and writer just completely disregarded the movie
The
because
cast,
it's
everyone,
such a
apart
mess.
from John Gielgud, who in very John Gielgud fashion said, "I've just seen Caligula. I've never seen so much cock in my life."
Yes, yeah.
One of the best British actors of all time, in my opinion. And I mean, it's impressive what bad performances they get out of the best actors of all time in this film.
Oh my god, yes. I mean, Helen Mirren's only in the original for what, like 15 minutes,
Something
or
like
something,
that. She's in this
but
so much more.
yeah, she's in this for a good hour or such, like way more. But what she's in, she's not great. And Malcolm McDowell, I mean, I don't know.
Chewing the
That man's one of the
scenery.
greatest living actors, like greatest actors of all time at that point. Like, what was happening there?
Chewing the scenery and Peter O'Toole. I don't. Peter O'Toole does not know what the fuck he's saying. It seems like it's so fucking weird. And I think we should say as well, the new version is supposedly entirely different. Like, supposedly it said in the opening text scroll, like, all the footage is new. Anything you see is like an alternative take.
Yeah.
And I mean, to my memory, and I had a bit of a skip through the original cut before the podcast. Some of it's virtually identical, so you know it's not like but it's close enough to a new film. Like the order of events has changed. There's a lot added. Obviously the pornography's taken away, but there's some just random scenes that appear to be taken away. And also, what I noticed just watching a few scenes here and there is Tinto Brass, for some reason, was not that interested in like a lot of the sets, that's the best part of the film, is the sets and the costumes.
Easily the best part of the film.
So like, there's a lot more wide angle shots. I guess they were kind of cropped in the edit originally. That's probably the best new addition in the film. Apparently the alternative takes are meant to show better performances. To my memory, some of the scenes are basically identical.
Yeah, I've not watched the original for a very long time. It's been since I 18, 19 when I watched it for the first time. Because I was like, ooh, a horny movie. I was 18. Like, that's basically how I saw it. But from what I remembered a lot of the scenes when I was watching it last night. I was like, yeah, I remember this bit. So if it's completely all new, it must just be slightly different.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the order of events has changed. Like, the way it opens with Caligula and Drusilla in bed is like an actual, like, quite sophisticated way of opening it than them skipping through the meadow in the original version.
I could say in the original they're, like, having sex in a meadow, because of course they are. And there's the whole animated, like, intro thing as well in this one.
I kind of didn't like that because you can tell it's been added on. Like, the animation is not from the time. So
yeah, exactly.
Not that the opening credits I mean, what? And also the music's different, right? There was a lot of like classical pieces taken out. So.
Yeah, I think the music's a bit different.
This cut, like, definitely is better. And if you are curious about all the historical context, then you should watch the OG cut for the historical purposes. If you want to watch the best film, go and see this new cut.
Yeah. And it's still not a great film. I think I give it a 6. You give it a 7?
Yeah, get up to a 7. It is basically a 5 or a 6 in terms of quality, but it's got such an entertainment factor because it's so fucking batshit. I was like, 7. Like,
and I think we both give the original a 4.
Yep.
Yeah. So that is like it steps it up quite a bit, especially yours.
There's some like really great stuff in Caligula. Like I mentioned, like the sets, you would never mistake them for like a real setting, but they're so theatrical and they're so massive. And there's that amazing tracking shot when Tiberius is taking the lift down in like the baths and orgy, and Caligula is having to run down. You see like this huge sort of orgy / bathing on like 3 different levels. So many extras, such wild and extroverted costumes. And it's like, this is like incredible filmmaking. Like, this really is taking a fucking old Hollywood historical epic you know, the kind that died with Cleopatra, basically, and giving it a good zhuzh of European exploitation art house cinema.
It's such an interesting story. I mean, sets are absolutely beautiful. It's easily the best part of the film. It's reminds you a little of Cleopatra, that kind of mess of a film that also has
Yeah, that's true,
unbelievable
actually,
costume
yeah.
design and sets. Like, very that kind of coded kind of film where it's like this grand looking thing that's absolutely fucking mental.
Like, the Italian sensibility of a lot of these films is very decadent. I mean, like I mentioned Pasolini earlier, but there's, you know,
Yeah,
Fellini and whatnot, you know, contemporaries of Tito Brass at that time. And even if you look at, like, a different kind, like a giallo, those are very extra like that as well. And I think, like, the exploitation is kind of good at showing the decadence of Rome, like these, like, very casual sex and rape
yeah, yeah.
and violence is just on screen, and it works on an exploitation level because of course it fucking does, but also to an extent it works on like an actual art level. And it's a shame that
Yeah.
in the original script, in Gore Vidal's original script, because Gore Vidal was a gay writer, that there was a
It
lot
was,
more
yeah.
gayness in it, and Guccione, who ruined the movie, was like, out, take it out. I mean, it's basically a solidly bisexual film throughout, at least in the new version, more so. But even still, that is still an edited version of it.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's crazy to think what that original thing could have been that Gore Vidal had there, because he's an interesting writer, and like you say, it's an interesting point to think about. Like, how many exploitation films do we have set around Rome and Greece and stuff? Because it is the perfect setting for them.
I was
like,
like, there's a lot of Japanese exploitation that's in the Shogun era, and they use that as
yeah,
an
yeah.
excuse to be like, we can do a lot of torture, basically. But you're right, we don't take advantage of our history in that kind of sense like they do in Japan, perhaps.
Because if anybody knows anything about ancient Greece or Rome, oh my lord, it was Thesmophoria and Dionysus festivals, absolutely insane. Like, they just had sex with anything that they wanted. Like, it's the perfect setting. And Caligula kind of actually highlights what a lot of that would have been, because a lot of time we see Rome on screen, it's a lot of historical epics about Caesar's battles and all of this stuff, and you don't get to see all the crazy stuff. I mean, what did we have? We had that what was it called? Spartacus TV show. That was on HBO.
Rome.
That was like,
There was Spartacus as well, which was really bloody. I never saw it.
Yeah, that was like super. That was kind of exploitation.
Rome is obviously like Rome but HBO'd.
Yeah, yeah.
I can think of
So there's those two.
Sebastian by Derek Jarman, but that's very cerebral and artistic and thought-provoking and slow, and this is like mental. I mean, like, I think directing-wise, like, there's like such a fantastic use of all this grand imagery and scope, and the fact that he didn't seem to, you know, a lot of it, it's hard to know what is Tinto and what is Guccione, but like,
Guccione,
yeah, the fact that like a lot of these wide shots were cropped in the original is a shame, because it's incredible. But like, on a storytelling wise, it's a fucking mess. Like, I know we are watching a cobbled together version, and the old version was cobbled together too, but like, I can't imagine there's a coherent film in here. Like, this is the best effort.
Every single version is just cobbled together in the end, so it's impossible to make out a coherent, fully fledged story. Because everybody has just had their hands on this thing, and it's never gonna be the original look at it.
And this is using Gore Vidal's script as the, like, what order the events go. So
yes,
you can definitely see where's been changed. I mean, Tinto and Vidal just fought to no end behind the scenes, and Vidal disowned the film, as did like fucking everyone to do with this film. Everyone's like, this is like such a, the fact that McDowell is so like keen to bring this back is like very refreshing.
It is interesting, yeah.
I guess because it's so historically important as a movie.
Yeah, and then I guess after it got that cult status as well, because everybody's heard of this, so it did get that big cult status that it can kind of attach to now.
I think there is substance in the film, even in in both versions, in all the versions
Yeah,
even.
yeah.
Like, you constantly read that the film's about power corrupting, but it really isn't. It's about a madman who at the start is preening and desiring power, and then he gets power and he gets bored with it. So it's not like power corrupting, it's about a crazy man
That's the
getting
thing.
power.
He was hardly corrupted. He was born corrupted. Like he was absolutely insane. The power doesn't corrupt him throughout. Is he starts off as an insane man.
Yeah,
Like
like the bits with Peter O'Toole as Tiberius. I love those bits because you can, like
yes,
Malcolm
yeah.
McDowell. He knows he's biding his time, and Peter O'Toole knows he's biding his time too, and is just humiliating him while he's got life left in him.
Yeah, those bits are actually kind of clever towards the start.
Yeah, there are, and I think it's kind of relevant still today. Like you have like right now going on in Israel with Netanyahu. Like he's just going on, he's just saying whatever crazy shit and doing whatever crazy shit he wants right now, and everyone is just like, well, he's in charge of Israel and we support Israel, so yeah, we have no comment on him saying and doing absolutely insane stuff and violating international law, and America kind of saying no, we're for a two-state solution, etc., and him going on TV and saying absolutely not, never, and America just being like, we
Yeah,
have
yeah.
nothing to say about this because he's got the power in Israel now.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a tinge of like authoritarianism in there because I mean Godvidal was super political, so he would at points.
Like talking about it, it makes me think the film is better than it is. But like, yeah, it's
Yeah,
completely cobbled together. Like scenes just even in the new version, especially in the old version, but even in the new version, scenes just do not follow on from each other.
yeah. I feel like people listening to us talk now might be like, "Oh, it sounds like there's a lot of substance to this and stuff hidden in there," and it's still horrific. Like it's especially the original. Like it's a hard watch is the thing, and it's really long, and it's just incoherent at points. So it's
I see. Like, I agree, it's incoherent at points. I mean, that's basically objective. But like,
yeah,
the old version, I was dragging myself through. This version, when the intermission card hits, which is I think there's only 45 minutes left after the intermission, I was like, oh wow, I
yeah.
have been like solidly entertained. I think the stuff when you come back with the dungeon guard, and who's deaf and mute, kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
joining Caligula's posse and doing the magic tricks in there. I came back, I was like, oh my god, this is like actual film.
Yeah, there is points in there. You said it flew by. I don't know if it flew by for me. I think I did still feel the runtime, and this is longer as
It
well.
is longer.
This
Like
cut,
there's more in, and there's
yeah,
scenes out in the old version. Uh, it's definitely, it feels shorter than the old version. Maybe being in the cinema helped. I think like there are moments in the film where you watch it and go, "This is the best movie ever made," and then there are moments where you go, "This is the worst movie ever made."
yeah, definitely, yeah. Like there's points where you could argue for either. I think.
Like I like a lot of the politicking. I like what's his name, Longinus. Um, with
China's,
such a
yeah, yeah.
ridiculous name, and like I loved all of that. And he's just, when Caligula's dying in this, or almost going to die, and they're just like, oh, we fucking hate him and he's making our lives a misery, and he's just like, yeah, but everything's stable, so I guess he's better than an alternative.
Yeah,
And
very
then he
true.
cut
Yeah, yeah.
he the longer he goes on, the longer he has this power. He's like, I'm bored, I want to make shit not stable.
Just like Caligula was, to be fair, an absolute
That's the
maniac.
thing. I don't Rome, for someone with a master's degree in history, Rome is my absolute blind spot in history. I know there's like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of revisionism recently that Caligula might not be as bad as he's known, but in terms of like capturing what people know about Caligula, this does it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. For everybody knows him as the Mad Emperor. Like he he was supposed to be absolutely insane. And I know a little bit about Rome. I'm more a Greek person, but yeah, it captures what some people wanted to see, I guess, from a Roman film. Like,
It does, and like, I mean, if you gave this to Pasolini and didn't have Guccione involved, it probably could have been a masterpiece.
yeah, which is the shame in there because this could have been a genuine masterpiece in looking at it and like get rid of all the hardcore porn and stuff and just throw in a bit of exploitation instead, and it could have absolutely been a masterpiece. Yeah.
Well, I think it's time we get onto the story. As I'm sure most people know it or know it vaguely. Because get ready, you're in for a fucking ride right now.
Oh my god, yes. Like it is one of the best back scenes stories of all time. Like it's incredible. All of the stuff. Like,
So, like, Bob Guccione ran Penthouse magazine, which was the pornographic magazine in America, where like if Playboy was too high class for you, you read this.
yes. Yeah, this was like it it was an interesting look. Like
And he fancied himself a movie producer. He put money because obviously pornography makes money. At least it did back then. He poured money. He fancied himself a movie producer, and he poured money into some projects, including Chinatown. Madly,
yes, yeah, Chinatown,
but he
yeah.
took a really hands-on approach for this. Like I said, like he had Gore Vidal's initial script, which was called Gore Vidal's Caligula. Gore Vidal is a mental writer. Like I think Myra Breckenridge is his most known work, and that was like a scandalous book. Like the main character's transgender, and it is like a lot of
Yeah, yeah.
sex. Yeah, I've not read it. I don't really have any interest in it, but
No, I've not read it. No,
I
no.
would recommend people check out the documentary Best of Enemies about the series of debates he had with
Oh,
William F.
yes, yes.
Buckley.
Oh, such an interesting guy.
Such
Like it's so
such an interesting guy, and he got on Buckley being like the godfather of like modern American conservatism and just an all-around shitty person with shitty beliefs.
oh, yes,
Like
yes.
you look at him now and he seems comparatively high class to like Trump and co or even Bush and
Oh,
all that.
unbelievably.
And then you
Like
listen to him speak and he's like, well, segregation is the best thing for the black community. When and
yeah,
debating against James Baldwin.
Baldwin.
You're
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh boy, you look high class by today's standards, but your views were awful. Uh,
The views were still
and
horrific. Yeah,
debating
yeah.
Gore Vidal on TV, Gore Vidal pissed him off so fucking much that he told him to stop calling him a crypto Nazi,
Crypto nuts.
or he
Yeah,
will punch him. It called him a queer, which back then was not an okay thing to call someone. He said he was going to punch him. So we stand Gore Vidal.
yeah. Gobadal said some fucked up shit also, but has done some incredible stuff on the left wing side of stuff. So
So yeah, rewrites to make it less gay. Guccione then
yeah,
hired Tinto Brass after he saw Sal and Kitty,
Sal and Kitty.
which I've
Yeah, yeah.
not seen. That's kind of Nazi exploitation. I think it's compared to the Night Porter a lot.
Ah, okay.
Then Brass and Vidal fought like crazy over the film. Brass had Vidal removed and banned from the set. And took his name off, so it's no longer written by Vidal. It says like adapted from a screenplay by Gore Vidal.
Adapted.
In the
Yeah,
new
yeah.
version, the opening credits, I noticed it said written by Vidal. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think he changed it back. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, they're filming this. So they have this mix of this producer who's a pornographer and actual filmmaker trying to make actual film. So like you get this cast: Helen Mirren, Gielgud, McDowell in the lead. McDowell post Clockwork Orange, post If. He's one of the great '70s actors. Uh, they wanted Orson Welles for Tiberius and offered him $1
I
million.
read that. Yeah, yeah.
Uh, te-
But he turned it down because of the
yeah.
script. Yeah.
I saw an interview with Orson Welles. The BBC's Archive YouTube channel just put up an arena interview with him from like just after this, and he says, I'm happy to do films even if I hate the film just for money, but I'd only turn it down for moral reasons. And I didn't realize he was probably referring to Caligula.
Yeah, it will have been referring to Caligula in that.
Brass, though, like, there was all these requirements from Guccione about the content, and Guccione had, I believe they were, like, I've just found this out today because I know nothing about Penthouse magazine, for God's sakes, but I believe their,
No,
like,
God, no.
models were called pets, which is a lovely
Oh,
word
God.
to refer to
Oh,
women. Um,
I did not know that.
yeah, because I was reading, it was like the Penthouse pets, and I was like, what the fuck is he? Oh,
What is he on about? Like,
yeah, he had them. Like they were got to be filmed in all these like orgy and sexual sequences and being naked, and Brass just like nah, and Guccione like complained that
yeah,
Brass was shooting like average looking people and older people and women because he's trying to get is an actual filmmaker and not these models he put on there. And also
Yeah, yeah.
Brass was ignoring the sets as well, which I mean that is a mistake on his part. After the film, Guccione was not happy by the lack of pornography in the film. So he snuck in, secretly it appears, to the sets after photography had wrapped with like a tiny little crew and all the models from the magazine, and they broke into the costume department, stole a bunch of costumes, and shot a bunch of actual hardcore pornography in, which was then spliced
It's
into the film, and Brass didn't
absolutely insane.
like, yeah, just ruining your fucking movie and
Like
putting yourself like yeah, you want to make actual money on a film, or you want to make something that no one in their right fucking mind is going to watch except curious cinephiles who want to see an absolute mess.
the guy was just really hardy. It was like, oh, well, we need to put. It's not like the film's not like out there. Like it's he's not splicing hardcore porn into like a very incredibly serious drama that's not got anything exploitative into it. It's
There's enough
still
fucking sex in
pretty
it already,
crazy.
mate.
Exactly. There's plenty of sex and nakedness and violence and everything. It's not a friggin' teen movie that he made into an NC-17. Like it's crazy. Like
It's probably the sense that it's probably what he thinks is like the American sensibility, and it's got to be, for lack of a better word, trashy.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
It was such a sleaze bag, the man.
I,
Like
I,
it's
I
crazy.
reckon allegedly there was a lot of cocaine involved
Yeah,
in
yeah.
this.
There will have been an incredible amount. I mean, it was the late 70s, going into the 80s. Like it was.
Apparently, like, everyone had such a bad fucking time on the film, like, from Brass, because of Brass and because of Guccione. According to Guccione, when they were trying to get everyone back for ADR because the sets were so big they didn't get good sound in there, Peter O'Toole like tried to outrun them, and they had to trace him to Canada, and according to Guccione they dragged him back like
That's so
physically.
funny.
Like, just imagine trying to outrun this sleazy producer. Like, I want nothing to do with this movie. Helen Mirren and McDowell, it never ceases to amaze me how willing they both are to do such out there work. I mean, I'm sure they got to the
Oh
set and were
yeah,
like,
yeah.
what the fuck are we saying and doing? Like, both in
They'll have seen the script though, which is crazy. Like they'll have.
maybe, I mean, they probably got something closer to Vidal's script, and then it was on, and it's a
That's true.
mess.
Yeah,
Um,
they will have seen the original more than
I mean,
anything, probably.
but like O'Toole and Gielgud, they're from another age. Like this, I can't
Yeah,
even. I mean, again, John Gielgud sounds like an absolute lad.
yeah.
Everyone disowned the film, um, and it became like who wants to watch this movie? Like, genuinely, because
Yeah, who is this for?
if
Like,
you're
what
looking for
is this?
pornography, you're not sitting through a 2.5 hour film starring McDowell and Helen Mirren. Um,
No, no.
and if you're looking for film, you're going to be like, what the fuck is happening? And, you know, maybe in Guccione's head, he's like, I'm making serious pornography that's like genuine art. I could imagine he was delusional as that. But if that was the case, he's a moron. Well, he clearly is, because you don't just go splicing
Yeah.
pornography into a film that, lest we forget, is already horny, has tons of sex and violence in it, as is already an exploitation film in its own right.
It reminds me of Burt Reynolds from Boogie Nights,
Yeah.
like trying to make the, yeah, it's such so that like we need to make this serious porn film with actors in it and everything. Like it's he must have been like delusional, thinking he was making like something great and just been like, well, we're gonna make the best porn film of all time that's serious and all of this. Like it's such a mess, and nobody wanted to see this. Like nobody wanted this.
And he
Like,
made it really, really fucking difficult to release the film and make his money back. Every country seems to have a different version of this. The alternative
yeah,
versions on
yeah.
IMDb was tiring to read through, and I'm not written down every single country's version because, like, Jesus Christ, it was like Australia here, France here, Germany here. It's all different. But I think it's worth talking about the UK, obviously, and then the US.
Yeah, yeah.
UK, it was actually, I mean, it was cut 8 minutes of cuts for cinema clubs because that was the loophole. That's how Salo got released, for example, if you were a
Yeah,
members
yeah.
club. And then they wanted to give it an X rating and it got 3 minutes extra of cuts and sort of edits to alternative angles and whatnot, which is fairly liberal. That sounds like just most of the pornography out. I'm sure there was stuff in the new version that would have easily not made the cut. I think because of the cast, they were probably kinder to it.
Yeah, probably, yeah, because the actual names in there that people knew. So
But then on video, because obviously in 1990, obviously we talked about this before in like every Video Nasty one, that they were just like actual movies that came out, but then when it came to video and the chance to own them, and probably in their head there was, well, kids could be watching this even though they're 18 rated, and also we've just had 10 years of the most rampantly conservative government in the modern era of this country. We
yeah,
need to crack down on sex and not even, yeah, sex basically.
yeah, that was what it was. Like,
So the 1990 video release was the US R-rated cut, which is 98 minutes and has 55 minutes cut out of it.
that is incredible. That's not even all the
That's not the film.
like the hardcore stuff. Like, is such a tiny portion of that. So that shows you like all of the stuff that could still be cut out just normally doing it.
Like, what must have... It's incoherent in its current
Yeah,
ultimate form when they've gone through the script and tried to actually place it in, like, the writer's order. It's incoherent as is. What the fuck must an hour out of this be like?
it must be absolutely. I really want to watch that version actually, because that must be the most mad editing of all time. Just cut into the most random shit ever. Like, what can you even do in that? Like,
The R-rated version was also, like, I suppose Guccione produced, because that version came because he was like, oh shit, I'm not making any money, quick, cut it to an R-rated version.
yeah, it must have been. Like,
But yeah, in the UK, 2008, there was Arrow video release on Blu-ray, and they passed all the versions uncut. I think they have a cobbled together cut trying to reuse it just from what was initially available. They also have the hardcore version, which I suppose probably, one, I imagine it's not very sexy, and two, it's of historical importance. And then the R-rated version, all passed uncut in this country, 2008. So yeah, then there's the US versions, and again, Guccione made his life absolutely unnecessarily miserable because many states threatened legal action with this. It was seized and attempted seized in a bunch of places. Some places it was pulled because they just didn't want to fight. However, it was consistently found not to be obscene.
yeah,
Because this is a fucking 2.5 hour epic with big actors and pornography spliced in. So I guess by a rigid definition, like even America being very conservative because of the First Amendment, it probably protected against this.
yeah, it will do. Yeah,
Then, yeah, surprise, surprise, this didn't make enough money. And even making, like, good X-rated films in America, except at the very kind of early 70s, like Midnight Cowboy, for example, was basically non-existent. American critics like Ebert have always complained about this. Year later, R-rated version, too many cuts to even mention, 55 minutes, to try and salvage this money sink that has just happened.
Yes, yeah.
So, yeah, and then the video releases had about 10 minutes of cuts in it. It was panned, unsurprisingly. I think Ebert gave it 0.
Did Ebert give it 0? I did not know that.
I think
That's
so.
incredible. I mean, of course he did, but
I mean, you can't blame him in this. He's wrong on a lot, but you can't blame him on this one.
No, you can't blame him for this one, no.
Yeah, this was obviously panned. It's a complete fucking mess, as we talked about. It is, I mean, this is worth watching because it's so bonkers, like the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You have to see what came of this.
Yeah, it's interesting just because it's such an interesting story. So you have to go, you should at least watch it once just to see what the hell came of this insane story. Like, it's more interesting coupled with the background than anything else.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's like a reason this is a cult movie and very well remembered. And there's a reason there's like a billion different video DVD releases. And this probably, this new cut probably cost quite a bit of money to assemble to go back. It's been overseen by a whole new director. It took years, I would have imagined. There's people are fascinated by this film, and people have always tried to extract the masterpiece out of this, which I think it's clear doesn't exist.
No.
But they've extracted a good, like Malcolm McDowell said, it's pretty good.
It's
the
fine.
New version. They've actually got a good film out of this colossal stinker.
Yeah, it only took 40 odd years, but they created a good movie finally.
And I can see why this would pack out film festivals and people would really want to. I mean, if this was at London Film Festival, I would have made an effort to go to it. Seeing it at a big screen on the BFI, it was something with all the costumes and set. It was really funny because I was talking to the people next to me before they left, and the person next to me said, "Oh, I kind of thought this would be Cannibal Holocaust," and I said, "I think that's a lot to spring on people as a surprise film," and he was like, "This is a lot to spring on people."
Yeah, it is a lot to spring on people. I guess if it was the original, it's even more to spring on people.
Crikey. I'm going to presume this is going to get a theatrical re-release, however small that may be. Yeah, I would tell you to go see this in the cinema because it's the place to see it. I was entertained throughout.
Yeah.
Great sets, great costume, chewing the scenery acting.
Oh,
it's not good
Lord,
acting,
yes,
but I enjoy it. Like Malcolm McDowell being bonkers, especially when you get into the third act and Caligula has lost his touch with reality. It's really entertaining.
It's super entertaining. It is entertaining, and people should definitely go see it, especially if it's in a cinema near them with this new cut. Absolutely go try and find it. It's an insane film, and it's very interesting.
It's very interesting. It's such a mess. Whatever version you watch, you're gonna. I mean, I've never seen the R-rated version.
No.
Christ knows what that's like.
It's
but
crazy. It's insane.
Whatever version you watch, you're getting an experience. And this, I can't think of anything remotely comparable to this because the backstory is obviously so absurd that this wouldn't have happened twice.
No, this will never be a thing again. So I think that's why you should at least try and track it down.
Next week, we actually have a common theme throughout these two films. This was meant to be our episode 2 because of the surprise screening and the fact I saw it a few days ago. We changed it to episode 1. Next film has a similarity with this. Dom, do you know what it is?
Is it Helen Mirren?
It's Helen Mirren. It's a Helen Mirren double bill because we're going from an absolute fucking mess to a masterpiece, in my opinion, and one of the best British films to ever be made by an absolute top-class British director. It's Peter Greenaway's The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, Her Lover.
Yes, which is a film I've never seen.
You're going to love it. It's such a you movie.
I know, and it's insane that I've never seen this, so that's why we decided this had to be in season 3.
Had to be, and it was going to be the season opening, so everyone, go track that down. No one's not gonna love that film. It's incredible. Thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you very much.
Episode 1, we're back. We've got 6 episodes this season and it's a stacked season. When we were planning it, we had this huge list of films, and it was kind of a bit daunting to narrow it down. But when we locked in our season 3 lineup, I was like, "Oh, this is a stacked season. We've got some good ones coming.
We have all the classics, crazy ones, bad ones, good ones. You'll love it."
Well, we'll see you next week, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Extreme Cinema Podcast with Alexander Sternberg and Dom Loach. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider subscribing as it really helps us out. The original artwork for the podcast was done by George Arnold. The Extreme Cinema Podcast, available where all good podcasts are available.